Alrighty. Ready. Alright, disable preview. Okay. What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing today? I know this is really short notice, and I only thought to do it about 2 hours ago. Still planning on doing a designated set of videos on this topic, and I know I'm a 40K channel, and I know it's a very loose excuse, but I'm just gonna say because Games Workshop produced the tabletop game for Lord of the Rings, I'm gonna use that as an excuse. Like, it's loose, but it's enough. I'll use that as an excuse to cover this. To be quite frank, I just really want to talk about it. It's the big thing right now. But it's not just because it's popular. It's because personally, I love Tolkien. I love the Lord of the Rings books. I love the Hobbit book. I love the movies. I will say this: when it comes to Silmarillion and that whole like anthology stuff, that's where I'm weakest in my Tolkien fandom personally. But I know enough about it to know where they're getting some major things wrong and missing things in the show, and there's a lot. Hey, Kaiju Blood God, welcome. But yeah, I kind of want to have an open mic discussion before I make any like videos on it. Technically, I've already made a video, I just need to edit it. But yeah, like an open mic conversation. So again, if anybody who's new to one of these open mics, in the description of the stream, there's going to be a link to a Discord. That's our call line Discord. There's some waiting rooms. You guys just hop in the waiting rooms, and I will drag you into the official, like, actual call, the stream call. And I'll do one-on-ones with everybody who comes in, ask your thoughts about the show. Feel free to say what you like about it, what you... if you do. And say what you don't like about it. I welcome all perspectives. It's going to be good to get some discussion in. And, yeah, this isn't a video necessarily. I will give my thoughts, obviously, and if you want, like, essentially what my review is going to eventually be, I'll pretty much say all my thoughts here today in the discussions, but I do, again, want to provide a platform for anybody who wants to voice their perspective on the Rings of Power outside of what's already commonly being said. Kind of give again like voice to the text, like comments and tweets and shit. That's the big reason I enjoy these open mics. I feel it's best to hear people's thoughts as they voice them, like people actually talking about their thoughts about series and stuff like this. That's why I like doing open mics. It actually gives voice to the absolute tidal wave of comments and text. Of text people writing and everything. Like, the internet's become so, like, obsessed with, like, the text-based stuff that verbal communication, I think, is lacking. So, again, that's why I like doing these open mics. But that kind of spiel aside, today, yes, we're talking about the Rings of Power, specifically episodes 1 and 2, because that's all that's out. Next week, about this time next week, we should be apparently getting episode 3, and it's going to be going on a week-to-week release basis. So, yeah. So yeah, once again, I'll provide it in the chat right now, but in the description throughout the stream, if anybody wants to hop in the call lines and give their thoughts, please feel free to do that. And I'm going to real quick spam the link in the YouTube stream chat. So yeah, for now, while we wait for possible people to hop into the Discord and hop in the call lines, I guess I'll give my thoughts candidly about the Rings of Power episodes 1 and 2. Episodes 1 and 2... Where do I begin? Episodes 1 and 2 are... it's so bad. I'm trying to think of, like, the most tactful way to approach it, because I like to... You know, I don't want to, scare people off who do enjoy something and make them feel like they're going to be prosecuted. But at the same time, I just don't see how anybody can like this. I really can't see it. Like, even a like, Tolkien... Like, I'm not a Tolkien nut. Like, I've read all the Lord of the Rings books and the Hobbit book, and I've watched the Peter Jackson films. I've watched them all the way through. I've watched the extended editions. I love the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. Not necessarily the Hobbit film. I think that was... But I don't hate it. But that being said, Nolan Hewitt, then you are blind. I'm afraid you're the blind one, my friend. But feel free to jump in the call line right now, man, and come on in. I'd love to hear your perspective. I will share the link again, my friend. Call lines away for you. Call lines away for you. I'd love to hear your perspective. I patiently await you in the Discord, my friend. Come on in. All right. While we await this gentleman to hopefully come on in and actually present his case, I guess I'll continue giving my thoughts. So yeah, it's a terrible show. Episode 1 is lore accurate. Is about as lore accurate as a shit pile on the side of the road. It's just not Tolkien. The substance of Tolkien is just absolutely not there. The heart of Tolkien is not in the show, and the dialogue is fancy. Like I'll say this: there's a clear attempt with the dialogue to sound profound and to sound like Tolkien. But if you actually pay attention to the substance of what's being said in any given conversation, it's very shallow, it's very hollow, it's not very substantive like they pretend it to be. I think a lot of people are going to be fooled by that, though. A lot of people are going to have the keys jangled in front of their faces, and that's going to trick them. Unfortunately, most of the people who claim to like this show, I think are very principle-less hacks. They're rabbles. They're part of the mindless rabble for the most part. Most of them are again fooled by the special effects, the fancy lighting, the fancy CGI, the again the production value is enough for them to say it's good. That's not at all what my standards are, and I think most people that's not. Well, I'd hope most people will have actual standards by comparison to that. So, yeah. Looks like Nolan Hewitt is still not in the chat. I await you, my friend, to hop on in. I'd love to get your perspective. As you claim I am blind, I feel that I very much would welcome your full explanation of that thought process. So, again, Nolan Hewitt, I will repeat the links to you, my friend. There you are. Feel free to hop on in. I would absolutely love for you to explain how I'm blind. But yeah, jangling of the keys. That tends to be the thing that's fooling a lot of people, and that's presuming good faith on behalf of people who are giving the show a 5 out of 5 stars. I do think the vast majority of them, especially if you go by the Rotten Tomato reviews and you read through them, they're absolute hot garbage. Like, all the 5 out of 5 stars I've read have, like, a sentence to them, and it's like, it looks really good. It's awesome. Okay. That it? The effects, the budget definitely paid off with the effects. It's really awesome. Okay. What about the story? You know, the most important part of a tale, of a movie or of a show. The pretty lights, I'm sorry, don't hold up an entire show. The Peter Jackson films looked great, but if the story had been dog shit and a complete departure from Tolkien in its entirety, we wouldn't remember it half as fondly as we do. So please, by all means, what about the story is good? And even the 5-star reviews don't even try and pretend the story is there. It's hollow. It's also slow as fuck. It's boring. Again, it's just absolutely lacking. But again, Nolan Hewitt, who said I was blind for having this perspective, which implies to me that for Nolan Hewitt, it is indeed the jangling keys are enough for him, because again, there's that hyper focus on the visual. It's like, oh, well, if you didn't like it, you're clearly blind. Well, the thing is, if you're blind, you should still be able to enjoy Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. You should still be able to enjoy the audiobooks of the actual Lord of the Rings novels. You shouldn't. It's a very scary idea that you have to rely on your sight to enjoy something like this. The substance of a story should be able to transcend any visual orgasmic imagery that they provide to you. So, yeah. Again, Nolan Hewitt, would you like to come on and explain yourself, or have you already run away? I suspect you've run away. Alright, assuming the coward ran away. Let's keep going. Welcome, Tang, Alex. I'm looking forward to see other people's opinions on this. I am as well. Hopefully we get some people in who have, half as much of a spine as, well, actually 10 times as much of a spine as Nolan Hewitt. Ehan, welcome. Hello. Akarn, welcome. I was expecting a bad show, but they made the worst. I was expecting the worst, and they made a very bad show. Very bad show. I'm not going to sit here, as much as, again, I think people are giving this show way too much credit, solely based off of the visual fidelity. I'm not going to say the visual fidelity is wrong. Like, people who like the visuals, I don't think are wrong to. The visuals, the special effects, the cinematography, I think the technical side of the show is actually very well done. I don't... CGI is worse than 2002. I don't agree with that. Maybe it's certain scenes I can point to and say, yeah, it's a little bad. But overall, no, I don't think that's a... I think that's... If you just mean to, like, absolutely hate on the show to your absolute... the extent of your being, that's fine. But I'm trying to be honest, and I'm not letting, my pure... I am trying to judge the show objectively, in a sense. Obviously, a huge part of my opinion is subjective, of course, all opinions are, but I'm not gonna be disingenuous. I'm not saying you are. Maybe to you it did look like 2002 CGI, but for me, I don't think that. I do think the special effects were pretty good. I won't say they were... I'll just say pretty good, because the thing is, I don't want to dwell on this, because it doesn't matter how good the visual effects are. That's kind of my point, is people are again, orgasmically like, oh my god, the special effects, oh my god, it looks so pretty. Bullshit, why does that matter? This is supposed to be the grand story of Middle-earth. This is the story, quote-unquote, that Tolkien never wrote. So, why are we praising fuck the visual effects? What about the story is good? And again, like, the people giving this show 5 stars, I haven't seen a single one of them give any kind of decent explanation outside of it looks pretty. It's like, okay, there's a lot of wretched things that look nice. And this is a good example. But yeah, the CGI I don't think is 2002. No, it's got its moments that I don't love it, but I definitely wouldn't quite put it like that. Not that it matters. Special effects are bottom of the barrel stuff. So yeah, guys, if anyone would like to jump in the waiting calls, a couple people joined the Discord. If you guys are still listening or watching, please jump in the... if those people who jumped into the Discord just now, I don't see them in the waiting rooms. You're not... The call line, the main call line to have people come in is not visible. Like, I that's how I make it so I can only bring in one person at a time to have one-on-one powwows. I don't like having group, unless, of course, the person I bring in consents to having an additional person in. I like to have one-on-ones in the call, so that's why you don't see the actual call I'm in, but you have the waiting rooms. Oh, we got our first caller. Hello, Nathan. Welcome to the open mic on the Rings of Power. How you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you, my man?
I'm doing pretty good. Have you seen both episode 1 and 2?
I have seen both episode 1 and 2. I watched it this morning.
Okay. So, okay, so how I'm going to try and approach doing this with all the calls is I'm going to ask your thoughts on episode 1. I'm not going to force you to summarize it too much, but we'll try and keep it like a manageable length of your thoughts. So, if you can condense
Just episode 1?
Well,
Or
we'll
are we
do
gonna go
episode
into
1
episode
and
2
then
as well?
episode 2.
Okay.
So one
right.
at a time, as opposed to just throwing out your like. I don't want the thoughts to be too chaotic, so I'm gonna try and keep it focused and organized. So
No, it's fine.
yeah.
I've tried to manage what I can think, but yeah, go on. So ask away.
All right. So before we actually get into it, do you want to hear my breakdowns of episodes 1 and 2, or before you break down yours, or do you want to do you first?
Is your reviews basically the reviews that you posted on the Discord as well as your YouTube channel as well? Because I've already read through that.
Well, that's my
Unless you
general
wanna give
review
them
of
more
the
detailed
show.
things.
That's a broad review. I have specific thoughts
Okay,
for 1 and
okay.
2.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's fine then. Okay, give me the extended Asmo cut then.
All right. So for episode 1, I think episode 1 is really, really hollow. I really disliked episode 1. From beginning to end, it... again, the technical side of the show, I'm not going to pretend was bad. I do think that the budget definitely shows in the special effects and in the... for some reason, the budget seems to run out when we get to the costumes, especially armor. I really hate the armor.
Yeah, yeah.
It just absolutely dies there, but if we're talking about CGI, we're talking about the cinematography, if we're talking about any of that, it's really good. But that's window dressing. What the actual substantive story that they start in episode 1, they start off the episode showing Galadriel, huge spoilers by the way, if nobody wants any spoilers, I can't imagine, if you aren't seeing this show, I can't imagine why you would be bothered by spoilers, but spoiler warning all the same, for courtesy. But the episode starts with Galadriel's a child. She creates a little boat. She whispers to it, so that implied to me she had some kind of magic spell to it. And she makes a float, and then she's bullied. And all of this is done in Valinor, which, for those who are not super keen on the Tolkien lore, Valinor is the homeland of the elves. It's the lands to the west. It's basically the Garden of Eden. Would be, though Tolkien was not a fan of allegory, an unintentional allegory, I would say, for Valinor was the Garden of Eden. It's a very picturesque, heavenly place, very much disconnected from the troubles of Middle Earth and of the greater world. It's a very different place, and
Well, yeah, it was supposed to be the land before, or the time before evil, wasn't it?
yeah, it was
Essentially, for the elves.
very much so. And the elves are akin to angels in certain senses, so. Again, it's a very heavenly place, and immediately I was so, just everything about the first 2 minutes pissed me off instantaneously, because first of all, I have a huge problem with them showing Valinor, because Valinor for me was always a place that you could describe. It did have a physical description. It was a physical place, but at the same time,
Yeah.
I think it was always so picturesque and heavenly to try and portray it on screen and do it justice to, especially my imaginations, as much as I'm sure most of the communities. I don't know. I wasn't a fan of that. I think they should not have shown it. And later on in episode 1, we'll get to it, where she goes back to Valinor, and the gates open up in Heavenly. To me, that felt so weird, because there they did what I thought they were going to do with the show, which is display Valinor as a heavenly place, but not actually show it. Just imply it, but again...
Oh, yeah, leave the entire thing to, the viewer's imagination.
Which they should.
Thing.
Each viewer would have their ideal, Garden of Eden that Tolkien would have thought of, and I think that's more powerful to leave it to the common viewer to picture. I don't like the idea that they give a definitive appearance of it. So... they show that initially. That pissed me off, but I can move past it. I get it. It is a location to start off in, and as much as it annoyed me, it probably isn't the biggest deal. Then we talk to... then we have Galadriel getting bullied by other elves, which felt so off. It's these are not common children. These aren't human children. They wouldn't act this way. These are elves. Culturally, and behaviorally, they are very different from other cultures. There is crossover, obviously, with humans and dwarves. They aren't like robots, but they have a very different behavior set than we would expect, especially given that they're immortal. So for me, the weird bullying of the kids, throwing rocks at her boat and sinking it, and them getting into fights, that's all very much what a human set of children would do, like living in a normal, boring world. But they live in, again, a place akin to the Garden of Eden. This is a very picturesque way. Such acts are, I never pictured elven children acting like that. It felt really weird.
It did feel quite tropish, didn't it?
Yeah, it was strange, and it felt like they were, yeah, exactly. They were trying to follow a trope more than they were trying to display the elves as what they are. Like, there's very different people to humans. They're not humans with pointy ears. That's not what they should be. They are angelic in many ways. So having behaviors like that, like common children bullying each other, I immediately, a huge misunderstanding and mischaracterization of elves is on display here. It was just absolutely terrible. But not since I don't want to get hooked up on every single point, I'll just kind of rush through here. So yeah, we progress past that. It shows they don't show Ungoliant eating away at the sap of the great trees, which I'm like, with the budget they had, they could have animated and shown Ungoliant, which, for those who don't know, in the Silmarillion, Ungoliant is basically a world-eating spider that allies temporarily with Morgoth. She's also the mother of Shelob, which is the spider we see in the Lord of the Rings that stabs Frodo, and she's also in The Hobbit, technically. But yeah, they didn't show Ungoliant. They just showed the tree being corrupted, which I was like, what? And then they showed what was implied to be like the shadow of Morgoth, kind of like over the trees, and his silhouette looked like Sauron, which for me also was a huge misstep, because Morgoth isn't just slightly meaner, bigger Sauron. He's far more a unique being than that. So again, given this weird silhouette of basically looking just like Sauron but bigger, again, I was just like, what the fuck? So again, step after step after step, there's just so many like fuck ups in the lore from the get go. This episode, it could not have started. Like, if you know anything about Tolkien, if you know anything about Silmarillion, and this is somebody who's only read the Silmarillion once, I am not someone to go to for like the Bible of Tolkien. That would be purists in our community. But even I know these details just from my one reading, and they didn't do anything with it. Like, they just, like, skimmed past it. They skimmed past the War of Wrath. They didn't even mention what the elves did to get ships to sail to Middle-earth to engage with Morgoth's forces. It's just all this stuff that they just summarize in, like, 5 minutes. There's just so much. They could have made, like, 6 different TV shows off of, like, what they didn't cover, what they skimmed over in those initial minutes. But again, they only have access to the appendices, so that's kind of not entirely their fault. But it's just, if you can't even include these details because you're only allowed this at that point, just don't make a second age show, because this is all such important background information and context for the world, and they just didn't have it. So yeah, it's kind of, again, I'm trying to give my thoughts at the same time. So many things just stick in my mind as stuff that pissed me off. So it shows Galadriel gives voiceover. She showed her brother, who had a talk with her when she was a child, said his lines are so fucking dumb. But he goes off to fight with the elves. He dies. In the Silmarillion, if I recall correctly, in the old lore, he was killed by a werewolf in service to Morgoth. But in this, it just shows him being killed by orcs. Well, essentially. Again, there's so much that they just fucking middle-fingered through in that whole first 5 minutes. So yeah, she's on a revenge quest. She takes her brother's knife, and she's hunting Sauron to the ends of the earth, because Sauron left his mark on her brother, so presumably either he directly killed her brother, or it was orcs that left that mark on his behalf. I'm not sure. And when the actual show starts proper and it's no longer like a voiceover of like thoughts and stuff. Ugh, God, Galadriel is such a Karen. Like she's climbing up the ice wall with her unit, and they're far behind her. They're struggling. She's climbing the wall with nothing but a dagger and pointed boots, and she's just slipping ahead. They get stuck in a storm while they're up there. Her lieutenant, who I thought was going to be a caricature at first, especially when like he looked up at her with disdain. That's what it looked like to me. But I was kind of pleasantly surprised that he wasn't like talking to her, like, you know, like down to her. I was going to be like, nah, fuck off. But thankfully, he did attempt to show some respect to her rank. He was like, you know, you're my commander, and speaking to you with that respect in tow. And it's just a bunch of dumb shit goes up. Because he recommends setting camp for the night and then heading home after they've climbed the whole fucking mountain. You could have done that while you were at the bottom, but okay. Now that they're up there, they find... we did a watch-along last night with some of the Discord community, and Karn made such an awesome joke, so I have to reference it. He said, "Is that Ice Crown Citadel?" Yeah, she's going to farm Invincible. Like they go in, and the place is apparently so evil that their torches don't give off heat and shit. There's so much I want to talk about. Okay. Zipping through, they go through that. Her unit, after they're attacked by a troll, say, you will go on your own, but we want to go home. So they go home. She does so begrudgingly. She's like, Mayor, I want to talk to the manager. When she gets to talk to the king, her relationship with Elrond is so off, especially since, you know, if you're armed with the knowledge of anything to do with Elrond, he marries her daughter. So, and they kind of show them, Galadriel and Elrond, being a little bit intimate, but I'm not sure if that's supposed to be just friendliness, and it just felt a little too... There's so much to unpack. And again, I'm going to have an actual video review. That's why I'm skimming here. In a video review, it's going to be so much longer. But, real quick, because at this point, if I go point by point, there's going to be so many things I'm going to hook up on, so I'm just going to pick out things in my head. There's no dwarves and Númenóreans in episode 1, so that's probably why it was worse in episode 2. And again, the acting was the verbiage that they tried to have the actors, the dialogue was very fancy, but if you actually understand what they're saying, if you pay attention to the actual meaning of the words, they're saying really no shit things and very common things. And it's confusing why it's being worded in such a profound way, other than to, again, jangle the keys to the easily satisfied rabble of normal viewers, who are just going to be like, oh my god, the words are fancy, so amazing, 5 out of 5 stars, show me pretty lights. Like,
I mean, they're kind of pleasing the casual audience, because, like, we can't make elves talk like regular humans, but they need to say stuff that regular humans can understand. So let's just fluff up the language a little bit, you know, give like a bunch of metaphors and similes and shit here and there, dress up essentially what you said, the no shit things.
yeah.
And then a lot of people will just easily buy it, which kind of brings me to a point you made before. Part of me can empathize with Amazon, because obviously they poured so much money into the show to show so many people on their platform. You know, this is supposed to be kind of like a big blockbuster series, wasn't it? Because they poured a shit ton of money. But how do you strike? But to them, how do you strike that balance? Like, do you go into the detail with all the old lore and keep, you know, the regular fan base? But obviously, them as a business, they're trying to appeal to a bunch of new people. But unfortunately, by doing that, they skim over a lot of shit that, you know, Tolkien had written about.
There's so much, and the thing is,
so
I would say if they had
them on that a little bit, but
I can empathize. Yeah, I can empathize with them attempting to summarize. Like, there's sense in like what they've said about like they wanted to condense it. Though again, I think if they had just done multiple shows, I think that would have worked out better. If to me that they're just rushing. The moment they got the rights to this series, they just immediately rushed right on in. For those who know the quote from Jurassic Park of Ian Malcolm, it's like, before you even know what you had, you packaged it, you packaged it, you sold it, and now you're selling it. You're selling it. It's like, literally, that's basically what they did. Like, they got the rights, and before they even took a breath to think about what they were gonna do, Jeff Bezos was just like, fucking make a show now, money. Like, there was absolutely no fucking. There was no patience with this, and it clearly tells, because all the things that, again, that they skimmed over in the first 5 episodes, the first 5 minutes, is just it's just so much. It's so much substance that they just middle fingered to, and went right past. And just to get us to Karen Galadriel forcing her troops through the snow and going to Sauron's last location, and she's like, she's such a Mary Sue, like. I really absolutely hate how they portrayed Galadriel in this. She was not a warrior.
Mary Sue, you fucking think. Like, she single-handedly took on a snow troll when
the rest of her unit were getting thrown apart.
Got fucking wiped, yeah.
She did fucking, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon fucking moves around, kung fu moves, and sliced it up, and did it with ease. She killed the old ice troll with ease. Which made that whole sequence felt so hollow to me, because that whole combat sequence was just empty. That, with her hitting that thing, it felt so fucking bad. So fucking bad.
Yeah.
Be fair. Good. Fine. It's good. Don't be like Nolan Hewitt and bitch out. I'm gonna share the link again. Please, this is an open mic conversation. We have a VC voice call Discord. Please feel free to join that, and I'll pull you. Just jump in one of the waiting calls, and I'll be happy to pull you in and get your thoughts, because I do want the thoughts of somebody who enjoyed this show. Because as far as I've seen, the only people I've seen who like the show are easily entertained by the visual effects. It's like, oh, well, the visual effects looked really good, so I love the show. It's like, okay, well, what about what's behind the window dressing? Nothing. So, again, I'd like if you have more than just you liked the special effects and the technical side of it, I would really like to get your thoughts, because I am very much hateful of the show, but I would actually like to have a discussion with somebody who has the opposite point of view as me. So yeah, to sum up my thoughts on episode 1, because I've already kind of lingered way too long. Episode 1 had, for me, it was about what I expected. Technical side was really good of the show, but that does not make up for such a hollow story. They skimmed over so much and downright overwrote so much amazing lore that, to me, they didn't need to. Like, there's some stuff I can accept for, like, the excuse of condensing, but then there's just downright ignoring existing lore for the sake of it, which was absolutely ridiculous. And the characterization of Galadriel as a warrior, she was not a warrior. She was a mage. She was a sorceress. She was.
Yeah.
That was what she was, absolutely. And to make her another Rey Palpatine, Mary Sue, fucking Slay Queen. No, that's not who. Galadriel was a powerful, badass woman, but not like this. She was not a warrior. In my opinion, warriors were beneath her. She was far more imposing. She was far more elegant. She was more of the traditional feminine powerful, which which for some reason Hollywood has decided means she's weak. That's not what that's no. Feminine strength is oftentimes far more imposing than masculine strength, and it can be. Like, think about it. How many of us have mothers that are probably shorter than us, but if they get pissed, we cow? Women can be strong in their own way, and they don't need to do it by being physically stronger and domineering to us. So the fact that that's Hollywood's interpretation of female strength now is just absolutely infuriating. So, yeah, I didn't like any of the stuff that happened in it. The Harfoots, I hated every moment that they were on screen. Initially, I was forgiving of it, because I was really... I think I liked it initially, because it did remind me of the Hobbits, very loosely, and I was like, oh, I miss Frodo's, I miss Sam, I miss Merry, I miss Pippin, I miss them. So that's what made me forgive it initially, but on second viewing, I was like, these really don't remind me of that when I think about it. It's just they shouldn't be there. They did nothing significant during this age, and to the end of the episode with the landing of I'm assuming it's Gandalf. I know they and we don't find out who he is in season 1, and I know, but at the very least we know it's a sorcerer. It's one of the wizards. I'm just sorry. So many like things that they did with him made it clear to me that that's Gandalf, like him whispering to but that's episode 2. So yeah, episode 1, absolute dog shit. I hated the entire episode. If I had to rate it out of 5 stars, I'd probably give it a 2. 2 out of 5 stars. The only reason it gets a star from me, outside of 1 star, is the technical side of it. Is like I can't deny that the technical side was very, very good. Unfortunately, it's the least important part of a good story. You can have dog shit visual effects, but if your story is just absolute garbage and it's completely unfaithful to the thing you're naming it after, yeah, no, I'm sorry. Like this was not Tolkien. This was not Middle Earth. For me, this wasn't even really passable fantasy. So
Yeah, I was going to expand on what you just said. Then the fact that essentially it wasn't like Tolkien-esque. It kind of betrays the name The Lord of the Rings, given what they've done with the source material or their own little fan fiction of the source material. Essentially, it's another Dawn of War 3 situation. If it did not carry the name Lord of the Rings, the show's probably passable. But because you have that name there, you bring with it everything else that was attached to the series. And ultimately, it's dragged it down. Like,
yeah.
you can tell watching it, Tolkien didn't fucking write this.
Well, they said it themselves. This is the story he never wrote, and
Yeah, it's basic.
In a sense, I agree.
Like, it follows so many tropes. Like, Tolkien would not, constantly write all this, very basic and predictable shit.
Yeah, I mean, it was just.
And to be honest, I'm kind of sick of seeing that linchpin online about the whole fact that, it is visually impressive. Yeah, it is visually impressive. And to be honest, that's what kept me watching. Because, I'm a complete sucker for, big, grand spectacles of, visualness, whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Visual fidelity.
Yeah, but, you could render a piece of shit in 4K ray traced. It's still a piece of shit when you're looking at it, no matter how beautiful you make it.
Yeah, and there's only so much the technical marvel holds any of it up, and for me, it just absolutely didn't with this. It's well, I'll get more into it with episode 2 because when we watched episode 2, something else kind of hit me with this show that, if anything, made me hate it more and made me sad. Like, it made me genuinely upset because of just what could have been. But yeah, I've already ranted enough. So feel free to break your thoughts down on episode 1.
I don't know how to feel about episode 1. I'm still very conflicted because, again, on one hand, I'm a bit of a sucker for visual aesthetic. I know the story's dog shit, given from what I've seen people tell me of the lore, and they've butchered it. But I think it's easing into the series. Once more and more episodes come out and they don't have that first episode that was, big and aggrandizing, then it can build a better opinion of the show. If you get me.
Yeah, I do.
I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket and call it really, really dog shit firsthand. Oh, this is terrible. This clearly isn't. Because even if it might not be faithful to Tolkien, it still could be entertaining to your basic viewer, which Amazon are trying to push towards. But unfortunately, with Amazon trying to push towards the lesser fan of Lord of the Rings, Unfortunately, they've pissed off the actual vocal community of Lord of the Rings.
I think they pissed
Like
off most
basic
of the
viewer,
Tolkien fan base across
yeah,
the board.
like they've pissed off the people who are vocal. So no, they've pissed off the people who are vocal. Like the basic viewer is not going to go online and write a review. If you piss off a dedicated fan base, you are going to hear the wrath of that dedicated fan base, and those basic viewers who will then go online will then read the fucking reviews and be like, "Huh, might not keep watching if it's pissed off all the people that actually have an interest in the show."
Oh, apparently Bezos' son allegedly hates it. That's fitting.
Good.
Good. His son's based. Yeah, like episode 1 was just. Episode 1 was bad, but I don't. We'll get into it. Real quick,
I think
what would you rate
of
episode 1 out of 5?
out of can I do out of 10?
Sure.
Gives me a bit more leniency. So, out of 10 currently, with only 2 episodes out, I'd give it a 4.
And that's for the show as a whole, or just episode 1?
That from episode 1 and 2, I'd give it a 4. So what I currently see now from both episodes.
Yeah, I have a different rating for episode 2 than I do for 1.
Holy shit! Okay, no, seriously, I want to get into episode 2 because that one is absolutely fucking wild.
Yeah, that one was crazy. I'll let you go first, and I'll do my rant.
For episode 2.
Yeah.
So, episode 2 to me kind of cemented my opinion on the Harfoots. Is it for the Hobbits?
Just if you just want to call them hobbits, might as well. That's what they are.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, yeah. So it kind of cemented for me the Harfoot. The kind of I don't hate when they're on screen. I just don't care. It's filler to me. Like the Harfoots with their whole Omen book and shit. You know, they're like, oh, we've seen this Omen. We've seen this Omen.
The thing is, I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. Like, I wasn't sure if it was a written history and it was like a journal of what normally comes by their area. Yeah, because that's what I thought initially. Because he Sedok, I think is his name. He referenced the book when the hunters came by unexpectedly, and he was very confused. And then he referenced it with the stars. So I wasn't. I was very unclear what it's supposed to be. Visually, it looked like it was supposed to be displaying things, so I think it's supposed to be a record of something, but I don't know what that book is.
I mean, either a record or because I remember the women, and obviously I could tell from the book, it could be a book of prophecies because they said it's a bad omen. My problem with that is it's so fucking contrived. Like, are you telling me they had this specific incident in this specific book and those specific events just so happened right near that village? Just so they could all start saying, "Oh shit, it's a bad omen."
Well, that's the thing. It's not a village. It's a caravan.
Get the fuck out of Dodge.
It's a caravan.
Well, I mean, you know what I mean. You know, they kind of like set up shop somewhere, and then the moment they're in danger, they're like, "Oh well, fuck, better get out of Dodge." You know, like bye bye.
Which in concept, I actually really don't mind the idea that like the start of Hobbits, like they initially were the opposite of what we see them in like the Lord of the Rings, because in Lord of the Rings they're very static. They're very they literally live in holes in the ground. You can't get a more permanent residence than that. Like they are stuck where they are. They're very much don't leave the Shire. Like we stick to our own. And here, I like I don't. They shouldn't be in the Second Age show. But if this was a Third Age show, I don't mind the idea of like the very first Hobbits being the opposite of that, and that's why they came to, as a society, appreciate the Shire and appreciate living in and having a dedicated home. that they don't want to leave. Like, if anything, that would explain that side of their culture a little bit, is because they used to be nomadic, because they used to be scared of their own shadows and had to hide from everything and forage for every bit of supplies. That would then make the judgment of Bilbo and Frodo leaving the Shire make more sense, because societally, where they came from and where they ended up, they would come out of that appreciating a static, steady homestead to stick by, as opposed to mass travel. So that for me makes sense. But again, the Hobbits in a Second Age show, they did nothing significant in the Second Age. It's debated whether they even existed during the Second Age, but I can buy they existed. But for them to have done anything significant, and as much as people who are going to defend the show are going to bullshit and say, well, they didn't. They just... Nori Brandyfoot just saved the wizard, but he's going to do the significant thing. You don't consider saving a wizard significant. Okay, then. Yeah,
I think, to be honest, like, that's what gets me about, obviously, episode 1 as well, is there are so many points in the show where it's so contrived. It's like, this thing just so happened to be there, or this thing just so happened to have happened in front of one of the on-screen main character at the time. Because obviously we're getting a perspective of different stories, they've not kind of intertwined so far. It's that things just fall into place at, like, the most unbelievable sort of possibilities.
To be fair,
like
given
like
its
a
fantasy...
snowflake just so happened. Yeah,
given his fantasy, stuff like that, like sheer coincidental, like fate stuff, I can buy that in a fantasy setting more than any other setting. Like, if this was a more realistic setting, I would have a problem with it, because it's just like, I hate coincidences like that. But in fantasy, like, you look at the most traditional fantasy fairy tales, it's a series of very, depending on your perspective, very fortunate and unfortunate events. To the extent they do it in this show, no. But I do think that in fantasy, it's more forgivable to have these grand coincidences, because it's the magic of fantasy. It's a debate about fate. It's a debate about preordained situations, prophecies, stuff like that. So yeah, but keep going.
It's the rate at which it happens, though, that I have a problem with, because I know at the end of Tolkien shit, it's the whole good guys win in the end. Evil is vanquished for now. We've got to prepare for the next time that they do it. The lands will know peace. That's expected, but it's the journey there. You're supposed to be kind of alluded into the fact that, oh shit, this character might die, or this character's dead, this character's dead. But still, in the end, it's a great, glorious victory that everyone can enjoy.
Yeah.
But it suffers from you've seen the Star Wars sequels, haven't you?
Unfortunately.
Do you know the yeah, I can understand. The level of contrived storytelling that was episode 3. Do you know when everything seemed to fall into place at the exact time that it needed to happen? That level, that's what I'm on about. Because obviously, the Star Wars film, everyone's going to win in the end. Because it's Star Wars. Like, what the fuck do you think was going to happen? But it's how it happens that pisses me off.
Yeah. I don't like to remember. It's kind of sad we're already comparing it. Thing is, I this might be a hot take, but I consider the sequel trilogy better than this. Because there's more in the sequel trilogy you can argue is faithful to what Star Wars is. This, outside of, again, the visuals, which, again, once we get to the costumes, that falls apart. But costumes aside, visually, it's there's a clear attempt to emulate Jackson's trilogy, which I appreciate, the attempt for that. But everything outside of the visual is not Tolkien. It's not Middle Earth. It's just that's not what this is. So it's sad to say it, but I do think that the sequel trilogy has more faithfulness to its source material than this does.
Yeah, thingy, like Khan just pointed out in the comments then, And like, and so I was like, I remember this, but I didn't know if it was like a fucking half foot or whatever. So apparently, what he's calling it in the comments is Sauron's blood sword. For
Oh
some
yeah,
reason,
that's
Sauron just left his fucking sword in some country bumpkin's fucking village, in like some farmland, or his sword ended up landing there. Somebody ended up acquiring it and just hid it under a barn. Like,
well.
you have
You
a
do
weapon
you
of
know
legendary power.
do you know about the
Why the fuck
leaks?
is it there?
Do you know about the leaks?
I do not know about the leaks.
Okay, do you know the guy that I keep forgetting his name? Mainly because I know him by what the leaks have revealed him to be. But the guy that Galadriel meets on the boat, or sorry, the raft.
I have a potential theory about who that might be, but
He's
tell me.
Sauron.
Fuck off.
He's Sauron.
Oh, why is he so wrong?
That's according to the leaks. The leaks have been dead on for episode 1 and 2, so I can't imagine they're wrong about the rest of the season. That's possible. But as far as the leaks have gone, that's Sauron.
Holy shit. Okay, right.
The images
speaking of that,
that we've all seen spread around by the media of the Slim Shady Sauron, that's actually
yeah.
not Sauron. That's a red herring. The show is going to do its utmost, both in editing and in script, for the character never to explicitly reference themselves as Sauron. Again, the Slim Shady looking motherfucker. That character is just a big red herring for Sauron. If I remember the leaks correctly, that's just a fallen elf that has come to I can't remember if it's worship Sauron or at the very least follow his corruption. But it's basically a huge gotcha, because by the end of season 1 they're going to reveal that it's in fact that dude. He's Sauron. And if
I hope
going in with I think I'm pretty sure they are. And
I really hope not.
Again, if you go by the leaks, episodes 1 and 2 are exactly what was laid out in the leaks for like bullet points. So I'd find it very strange for them to get episodes 1 and 2 correct and then get that big reveal wrong. Right. The thing is, if you watch the scenes with him armed with the knowledge from the leaks that's Sauron, he says things that kind of are meant to be like look backs, like after the reveal eventually in this season. Are gonna be like, oh yeah, that was a hint. First of all, remember how he immediately
all come together.
If you because the thing is, and as Pyrrha spoke about it in great depth last night, so this is me. I don't remember this explicitly from like the Silmarillion and stuff, so this is me providing information from a Tolkien nut who was recanting it while we were watching the episode. But Sauron, after Morgoth fell, was actually, in his own way, wanted to repent for siding with Morgoth. He did kind of see it as a mistake, but unfortunately his idea of fixing it was to conquer everything himself and perfect it and make it better.
Yeah.
So, though he, in a way, wanted to do good, he, at that point, especially after having been Morgoth's lieutenant for so long, like, just his instinct was to do it the darker way. So the attitude of Halbrand, that's his name, isn't it? The attitude of Halbrand, most likely Sauron, matches that in the Silmarillion as Pyrrhus described it, where he's kind of repentant and he's depressed, and you see how like downtrodden he is while he's on the boat, and also the way he talks to Galadriel is very. If I assume if you're watching it and you don't know the leaks, that you probably won't catch it. But for me, I caught it as clear as day. Like, just this snideness, this kind of analytical glare at her. For me, I definitely got the impression that the behavior that they had him portraying matched Sauron's attitude at this stage, and also certain things he said. I wish I had like a transcript in front of me, because there's something specifically he said while he was interacting with her. I'm trying to recall it, but a specific thing he said to her while they were interacting with one another, for me, was like a dead nod to, yeah, that's Sauron. but he's hiding it. But since I can't, again, if I had a transcript in front of me, that would be better. I probably will for once I actually do the proper reviews for the episodes. But that aside, because I can't recall it specifically, I just know there was something he said. But also his general avoidance of her questioning when she was like, you know, like, where are you from? Like, he said the Southlands. Eventually, after he continually refused to answer her as she asked, you know, what happened to you? Why are you downtrodden? You know, like, she questioned him, and the only thing he revealed is, quote unquote, where he's from, which is the Southlands. What I took from that is that was Sauron taking a lie and twisting it with the truth. That he was in the Southlands and he stashed away his blade. And then when incognito, and this is a theory because I can't remember if the leaks pointed it out, but my theory is that he disguised himself as a human and sailed the seas in the hopes that the higher beings in the universe wouldn't know where he is either. So if he's hid himself amongst humans, I think the Valar, because I want to say Maiar, but I think it's the Valar is what I'm actually thinking of. The gods of the sea wouldn't like him very much being on the ocean, considering all of Morgoth's followers were pretty much banned from their realms. So
yeah.
I always took it that the reason the ship he was on was wrecked in the first place is that camouflage failed, and the Valar controlling the sea had him attacked. And when that storm hit he and Galadriel, I saw that as them also hitting him again because they knew he wasn't dead. And another hint that it was Sauron was also his immediate reaction to the threat of the sea monster was to cut his section of the raft off from the rest of the survivors and leave them to take the bite from the sea creature to let them die. Like it's stuff like that that's all minor hints. Like that right there, like that was his instinct, was to use other people as bait and leave them to die. That's Sauron. Everybody is a pawn, everybody is someone to manipulate. And a lot of people are gonna combat the idea that this is Sauron by saying, well, he saved Galadriel. Why would Sauron save Galadriel? She's hunting him. Never let a pawn go unused if it has the potential to be. And I think that's very much what he saw her as in that moment is, okay, she's an elf. She's far more useful than the common rabble of men that I could manipulate. If I have the ability to save her, why wouldn't I? That's what I interpreted that action as. So
I like your theory, but I think you're giving the writers way too much fucking credit.
I might be. I might be. But that's there's other stuff in episode 2 I kind of want to talk about.
Seriously, I want to make a comment about if this is Sauron, if this is Sauron's a dumb motherfucker.
Oh yeah, I think that's just the writing though.
Remember that scene on the raft where they're in a thunderstorm?
Yep.
And Galadriel ties herself to the post. Post gets blown up by lightning and shit. And then she's slowly falling into the river.
The ocean.
And he's staring... So the ocean, no, fuck you.
It's a little deeper
Malibus.
Than a river.
Yeah, I've had a few Malibus, so I'm a bit off. But he's staring at the fucking rope. And it keeps going and going and going, and he's just staring. It's like,
well,
at what point
I took that as him debating, like Sauron. That's that was the moment Sauron was like, I could let her drown. One less mouth to worry about, one less person to worry about hiding my identity to. But she's an elf. She could be useful. She was in the middle of the ocean, which I already speculated openly to her that might mean she was a deserter, but her reaction to it was not. So perhaps she's an important military figure. Or if not a military figure, someone else that could be influential. I need pawns. Here's a fresh one. And so in the time it took him to weigh his options, I think that's what was going on in that moment. Again, little things that could be very much giving the writers way too much credit, but
Now,
I'm
yeah.
just given what I know of the leaks of of Halbrand being revealed by the end of the season to be Sauron. That's for me. That makes sense. That's why he hesitated.
You see, I like that, but it's the fact that they kept panning back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, as if he's still just staring at the fucking rope. Like, they could have just done one shot of him looking at the rope, thinking, and then he jumps into the ocean. Why the fuck they needed to pan back and forth like 4 goddamn times, slowly looking at the rope going?
Editing.
Fucking editing, Jesus Christ.
Editing is an important. There's one edit in episode 2 I want to bring up that pissed me off like hell. But I real quick want to go into the positives of episode 2 because yes, believe it or not, I have some positives to say. This isn't just a teardown because episode 2 was way better than episode 1. And yes, for the same reasons a lot of people enjoyed episode 2 over 1. The dwarves. The dwarven sections. And also the conversation with Celebrimbor I liked, but only part of it. There was the beginning of it was...
Oh, yeah. Your boy's back.
Mm.
The legendary Celebrimbor.
He looks way too fucking old. Like, I don't know why they cast older-looking actors for the elves.
Like, yeah, to be honest, I would have preferred Celebrimbor with, like, the long streak down hair instead of his little fucking raggedy short hair that he has in the goddamn show.
Yeah. Their haircuts are absolutely... They look like the Californian, like, model haircuts, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, it's so bad. It's so... I am sorry. I'm just... Like, every time, like, I see the elven characters, I'm just like, Calvin Klein. It's... oh, God. But, anyway, the positives. The dwarf stuff I fucking loved. Here's where, and listen, I respect figures in like who've been commentating on these episodes and covering it, like the Critical Drinker, Heels versus Babyface, Nerdrotic, Geeks and Gamers. Like I get where they're all coming from, and I listen to their group Friday Night Tights review of the episodes. I disagree with their characterization of the dwarf stuff. Not fundamentally, like I agree with the sentiment of the episode and the sentiment of the show, but I think that they carried that too much into specifically their critiques of the dwarf stuff. And because I think for me, the reason episode 2 made the show so much worse and made me hate the show is because those dwarven sections with Elrond interacting with Durin and Disa. Which, by the way, I was shocked. I went in hating that chick. Like, I was like, I hate that actress. She's so full of shit. I've heard her say so much crap on the press tours and shit. And then to see her character, I was like, I hate you because I love your character. You feel so homely and nice.
Yeah.
I hate this.
I love the character, but I hate the way they've forced what the character
also,
to be.
big major point. I'm actually going to record this because I'm just going to... Big major fucking point that I haven't heard anybody talk about, and did anyone notice they put sideburns on Disa? She's got little hairs right here on her jawline. She has very subtle, but it's there, sideburns. Remember when they fucking attacked the audience for calling them out because in all the promotional photos and shots, they didn't show those sideburns? And by the way, this wasn't CGI. That was clearly glued on stuff. So it's not like they fixed it after the fans bitched. That was there originally. In the original cut, she had facial hair. So what I take from that, from that scene and from everything we know, they did actually try and be faithful to what Tolkien, or what was originally said in regards to Gimli and Aragorn's conversation about like dwarves hopping on the ground and that the women's having beard because they look like men and so much in appearance. I think that they actually tried to meet that part way, but they wanted, this is again my interpretation of that being there, is that they did put facial hair on the women because they did recognize that was an established feature of the dwarves. has Tolkien established it, but they wanted to maintain the femininity of the character and of the characters. So, because they wanted to maintain the femininity, they toned it down, but they toned it down way too much. However, when they started showing promotional material and the fans called them out on this shit, it backfired. Because their reaction wasn't to go, oh wait, let's show them some quick screenshots of the episode and say, hey, you see the facial hair? See the fuzz? Well, that's because we were planning on doing that, but we toned it down because we just wanted to maintain the femininity. We wanted to make it more clear. That was a choice for the show. We apologize. It's just simply a change we thought was fair. Instead of taking that approach, which was very much akin to what Peter Jackson's approach was to his changes, they were all made like the armor choices made in the Jackson films. That's because, as it's a visual medium, it's very much he wanted to make the distinction between the Minas Tirith and the Gondorian forces and the Rohirrim very clear. The Rohirrim have more of a leathery kind of padded leather armor set, kind of Viking-esque. And the Gondorians are more plate armor, more heavy set like that. More, I won't say, I guess it's a traditional medieval look. That, that I think was what they were thinking. But for some reason, I think their marketing team and their people on Twitter, their immediate instinct was to be arrogant. And to, instead of just admit or acknowledge the criticism and simply say, hey, this was our bad, I think they went on the attack despite the fact that they agreed. Which makes it so much fucking worse. It makes it so much fucking worse. Because if they defended their choice because they actually chose not to put facial hair on the female dwarves, like, wholesale, that would at least make that aggression, that attack they went on against the fans make fucking sense. But because to me, it's with that fuzz there, it's quite clear that they did acknowledge that was something that needed to be there, but they toned it down too much. Instead of acknowledging that and prostrating themselves before the fans, as you should when they love something and you want to sell it to them, instead they said, fuck you. Tolkien never said that. And then they went on a whole fucking crusade. They sent as much of their fucking agents of chaotic spawn to fight left and fucking right over this point, constantly saying how Tolkien never fucking said that when he did. It was all bluster, because they didn't even disagree with it. So all of that fucking initial fighting was for nothing, because they agreed. And they just they had too much pride and ego knotted up in this bullshit that they could not possibly fucking admit that that was the case. And again, I've seen no one else but me catch this. Now, maybe y'all will disagree. For those who have seen these episodes, please, by all means, don't watch it on Amazon. Yo-ho, me hearty yo-ho. Why did I say that? That was so unrelated. Anyway. Feel free to watch that scene. It's the dinner scene with Durin and Elrond. There's plenty of side angle views of her, and she has chops. Not like thick ones. Like it's very subtle peach fuzz. But it's there, and it's clearly not natural hair. Like that was put there, and it's not CGI. It's not special effects. So, again, they intentionally put it there. It was there originally, but instead of prostrating themselves before the fans and saying, hey, this was just a change we thought would... that they went on the attack. Which is so much worse, given the context that they agreed with us. And they just toned it down too much. And rather than admit that, they said, fuck you.
You good, my guy?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I need to vent on that.
Did you like getting that off your chest?
It's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. I'm so mad nobody else has caught it so far. Or maybe they have and they just didn't think it was worth mentioning. But I'm just saying, like, it's such a significant thing that It just makes everything that they've said even worse. Like, it's already bad enough they attacked fans by essence, but the fact that they attacked them over literally nothing, because they didn't even clearly have the take that they said that they did, it's just so much worse. It's so much fucking worse. It's just so much worse. Hold on, I think I can. Hold on. I'll actually bring up that part of episode 2. Yeah, you get my click. Fuck you, Amazon. It's because I'm too lazy to try and get the pirated version. Alright, let me find the sequence.
Bezos is rubbing his hands. You've gave him one more click, Asmo.
Fuck off.
Yes.
Hold on. Okay. Trying to find a good angle to it. I'm seeing it, but I'm trying to find a very clear angle that people aren't going to argue with me over. There we go. That was a very clear image. Just make sure I get it right on dot. Alright. Let me pull up my thing here. Alright, so it's great. So it's very subtle, but right there, I look at it when obviously the 10-second skip ahead goes away, but there's a clear line of mutton chops that are glued on that go from the hairline down to there. And just to be
I can see it.
just
I
to
can see on the stream.
just to give people the absolute impossibility to claim that I'm bullshitting here. Allow me to zoom in on this. Right there. See the chops there? Yeah. She doesn't have those in the press tour, so that's not natural hair. They literally gave the female dwarves beards. They just toned it down to the literalest peach fuzz they could because they wanted to maintain the femininity. And instead of just acknowledging that and saying, "Yeah, listen, this is a change we thought was fair. Clearly you don't agree, but hopefully you still give the show a shot." Instead of having the integrity and gumption to do that, they went on the attack rather than acknowledge the fans. Again, this is so much fucking worse than if they had actually chosen and believed not that female dwarves didn't have beards, when clearly, again, they did.
Ultimately, they heard their own show with the amount of fuss that they kicked up and then immediately backtracked on it. Well, not immediately, but put it in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, none of that was actually fucking needed.
Still angry about this.
How angry are you about it?
I'm fuming.
Go on, get it out. Get it out.
I'm fuming. Okay, let me fix this.
So, do you have any high hopes for episode 3 then? To see if they fix any of this.
The thing is,
the
dwarven sections. I didn't really go into all the reasons I thought it was great, but just a summary of why the interactions between Elrond and the dwarves' behavior, I thought was very fitting of dwarves. I think Critical Drinker went on a small rant in his review of it, where he said that he thought Durin was like a petulant child being angry at Elrond for not seeing him in all those years. I disagree. I disagree very firmly with that take, because dwarves are petulant.
Yeah.
Like Lord of the Rings itself, book and movie. make it quite clear the dwarves are stubborn. They are easily offended. They take those grudges very fucking
they
seriously.
Are known for grudges. They
Yeah,
are known for grudges.
yeah,
It's
and
specific to their race.
well, that it's more hyperbolic in like Warhammer Fantasy, but even in Tolkien, they have grudges. They're stubborn, and they're easily offended, and they hold on to it for life. So, yeah, like I'm sorry, Drinker. I think that was a case of Drinker just didn't know what he was talking about. Well, that's a really bad way to put that. Not that he didn't know what he was talking about. I think he didn't brush up on the Tolkien dwarves enough, because like the Warhammer dwarves, they do hold again. The Warhammer dwarves are obviously way more hyperbolic, like almost cartoony level in Warhammer Fantasy.
Oh yeah,
but in Tolkien, which is, let's be honest, that's where the Warhammer dwarves come from. They're pretty much copies of them, but just slightly hyperbolic, more hyperbolic. Sorry. But we see them in with Tolkien. They are petulant. They are absolutely, and that's part of their charm. That's part of their fucking charm. It's going in the book, Asmo. Yeah, feel free. It's going in the fucking book. But it's just like, but yeah, I gotta move on from the beard thing, or I'm just gonna be stuck on it forever. But only watch the cinematic version of the movies. Just saying. Well, yeah, and again, that's why I'm trying to be as fair as possible, because I like the Critical Drinker and I think he has really good takes. Thing is, it's just I don't think he's familiar with the lore as much as, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm stroking my own dick about this. I'm not like God King of Tolkien mythos. I've only read the Silmarillion once. I've read the Lord of the Rings multiple times, like all 3 books all the way through. I still own them. I've read through The Hobbit numerous times. I love those books. I fucking love the movies and the extended editions of Lord of the Rings. So I will say, with a level of comfort, that I know a little bit more than Critical Drinker. So it's not a case of the Critical Drinker had a bad take. It's an uninformed take, I would say. He generally, I agreed with everything else he said about the show, because he's absolutely right about the show elements of this crap. But that specifically, like being angry that Durin was petulant about Elrond not talking to him for a long time, that's absolutely accurate. That's absolutely accurate. That is 100% accurate. So,
to be honest, if anything, it's the charm and the relationship between both of them.
Oh yeah, and again,
yeah, which kind of adds to it, because these are like 2 people from opposing races who are supposed to be, sort of sworn enemies.
Well, they're friends,
and they kind of get along yeah, exactly. Like they get along like bratty teenagers because he didn't show up to his wedding.
Yeah. And not there for the birth of his 2 sons. These are things that dwarves would take.
Yeah, that as well.
Because the thing is, grudges aside, it's also the friendship element that made it so severe. Gimli makes a point of this in The Lord of the Rings, and we also see it very strongly with The Hobbit and the dwarves that are there too. When dwarves call you friend, like think about just the password to get into Moria. Speak friend and enter. They valued the word friend and the state of being a friend that highly. Tolkien dwarves put friendship on a pedestal. It's not blasé at all. You don't just like, oh, I had a good night drinking with you, you're now my friend. No, friend is a friend for a dwarf, a Tolkien dwarf, is like, you're my family now. I put you up high. So that for them, not seeing a friend for a long time, like just something that we would all be like, well, it's forgivable. Maybe Elrond just wasn't made aware of the wedding. Maybe he just didn't think about checking in about the kids being born and stuff like that. Because for elves, time flies like that, and he just didn't have a comprehension of it. But to a dwarf, that is a crime. Even though dwarves live a long time, because Drinker also made a point about them living a long time, and that they should also view time similarly. Not necessarily so. They don't live as long as elves. They do eventually die. Like, dwarves are not immortal in Tolkien, like the elves functionally are in a sense. Because unimpeded, an elf will live forever. But dwarves, they get old like humans, they die like humans, they just live a lot longer than humans, but they do have an expiration date. So for them, they do have a concept of time. And for them, I would even argue that dwarves, specifically their concept of time, would come in the frame of events like that. Like, if he had not gotten married and had 2 kids in that time, he probably would have been less pissed at Elrond. Because his own life wouldn't have expanded that much. But because he had those significant life events, and his friend wasn't there, that deeply offended him. I think that fits. So, everything with the second episode to do with the dwarves specifically was, in my opinion, pure Tolkien. And that's why, and I know this is going to sound strange, but hear me out. That's why it made me hate the show all the more. Like, I went from being angry at the show to hating it. Like, passionately. I hate this show. Why? Why did that enhance it? Because it's what we could have had. It's that glimmer of Tolkien. It's that glimmer of understanding of Tolkien. Just that little spark in a dark tunnel that made me hate it. Because they had the golden ticket. It'd be different if the whole show was just 100% garbage. At that point, it's just like, okay, we'll meme on this, we'll rant about it, and then we'll all abandon it by episode 5. Which I still probably will happen. But because they had that spark, that little inkling of light at the end of the tunnel, they had it in their hands and they let it slip away because of hubris, because of ego, because they thought they could tell a better Tolkien story than Tolkien. That makes this such a fucking crime. Because that's how much I actually enjoyed those dwarven sections. Because it felt like Tolkien.
Are you sure you want a little bias towards dwarves, though?
Maybe a little bit, but...
Yeah, I was gonna say, if I know anything about you, the moment dwarves pop up on screen,
I love dwarves, so shut up. But
you're there with a fucking tankard full of beer smashing it
am
against the
I
table.
completely off base? Did those moments did they not have that hint of Tolkien? Did they not have that hint of Middle-earth and the relationship between Gimli and fucking Legolas a little bit there? Did you not get that feeling?
I was going to mention something as you were ranting before about the whole friend thing. In the Lord of the Rings film, there's that scene between Gimli and Legolas that captures it perfectly. Said, I never thought I'd be fighting side by side with an elf. Well, how about a friend? And then they both smile at each other. A little bit too long for my liking, but...
It was a perfect length of time. I don't agree.
But yeah, they said that, and to be honest, I think that was a massive moment in like all 3 films. The fact that a dwarf and an elf throughout the entire story, when dwarves and elves are pictured to be these opposing races that really don't fucking like each other, 2 individuals are like really happy and really good friends with each other now. And I forget which fight it's before, but it's the fact that they're standing side by side, and that scene captures it perfectly.
That was the final battle at the gates of Mordor.
Yeah, I thought so. Mordor.
I love saying it like that.
And
it's
also,
not as fun to say Mordor.
Yeah.
It's really the Mordor. Like, roll the tongue.
Do it with like a Scottish inflection, is like Mordor.
That being said, though, you notice that like every character says Galadriel, like that, like every character.
Yeah, I really don't get that. Like, why do all of them spice it up? Like, not all of them, like speak eloquently, but for some reason, for her name, they do.
Yeah, it's strange. It's like everyone says it like that specifically, Galadriel. But maybe like when we eventually get to more humans saying her name, we'll start hearing it like I expect it. Like I expect it to be said differently based on who's saying it.
Yeah.
But the fact that like everybody who's said her name thus far has said it the exact same way, kind of like Aragorn would have said it, because it's got a hint of the accent that that Hugo Mortensen put on for the character of Aragorn. It's got a little bit of what he put into his character in terms of like the pronunciation. So I don't know if that was what they were going for, or if they just wanted them all to say it the same way. I don't know. Like for me, maybe when the Numenorians start, we start hearing more of them say it. But even like, even Sauron, I really can't think of calling him anything else personally. Even he's kind of said it like that. Galadriel. Like, I don't know. Like, it's weird. It's weird. It's not like a gripe. Like, I think of all my complaints with the show. This is very minor, but it's a weird thing.
Yeah. Thinking about what you were saying before with the Tolkien aspect given the dwarves, I completely 100% agree with you. Like, to be honest, that's one of the driving forces of me still watching the show. Like, I like to fully admit it, I am hate watching it because I'm watching to see what, like you said, we could have had. Because they get some aspects of it on fucking point.
And for me, like,
But
the
the rest
dwarves is what
kinda
they
just
were
tough.
getting right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's episode 2.
Yeah.
That's just episode 2. Like, what else could we potentially see?
Yeah. It's for me. That's exactly what like hurts the most. Like it'd be one thing if they just got it wrong wholesale. I could comfortably leave it. Like I could like let it drown. But it's because it had those hints that a part of me is just so much more angry about it.
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean,
you had potential and you wasted it, as opposed to something not having potential and being put out of its misery.
there is something I am worried about, though, that I think to carry on from what I said earlier in the call, is the whole Dawn of War 3 thing, such as, if you didn't have the title along with it, the show probably would be actually decent, but because you've got the name with it, you carry all that baggage with you. To carry on from that same legacy, I'm worried about what this will do to companies who want to actually produce Lord of the Rings media.
I mean,
Because they know if they fuck up, no one will buy it, or no one will go for it, no one will support it, no one will have anything to do with it.
I do agree
The fan base is so dedicated.
I think that'll be the case for anything Amazon does going forward. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Other companies that are disconnected to Amazon, I think still have a chance for people to give them a chance. The one thing I think definitely will happen is people will be hazardous. Like, everything that comes out that's even remotely related to Lord of the Rings going forward now is going to be approached with an immense amount of suspicion. Immense amount of it. Again, other than the normies who will just consume it, the jangling of the keys is all that they need to enjoy it. They'll eat it up. But thing is, when it comes to this specifically, this is a situation that feels like a lot of what we consider normies have been fighting back. Like, this isn't just a case of the two vocal. At least it doesn't feel like it. I could be wrong. I obviously haven't done an actual like poll or anything, but this is a weird situation, and a lot of people have pointed it out with the Rings of Power series. Is in terms of like the culture war in media, this is the first time it's felt like there's been like a near unanimous front against like politicking and propaganda and forced diversity and all the wokeisms being forced into media. In every other iteration of this battle, most of the battles are still going on. Like, the Star Wars crowd are still fighting each other. The wokies activists versus the actual fans of Star Wars. They're still fighting, despite the fact Star Wars is fundamentally lost. Us in the Warhammer community, we're still fighting their crowd, and thankfully, so far, they haven't taken any major victories, I wouldn't say, for what's happened in Warhammer. I mean, the day we get female Space Marines is the day we've lost this battle with the 40k community. But even then, like this battle with like within the 40k community is very much like the normies are not involved. It's they just stay completely out of it, and that's been an ongoing fear with our community. But with the Rings of Power, this is the first time like I can recall there being a united front. Like I don't feel the presence of the silent normies that just don't get involved and continue to consume the product until it spurs them directly. So, and thus leaving the fight to people who actually care more or pay attention more to it. But in this case, even normies are like standing up and taking a side on this one. Like it's weird. It does feel like it feels like the final battle line, like the final battlefield in this ongoing war with forced diversity, with wokeisms, with all this bullshit being forced into our media unnecessarily. This feels like the last line of defense. If they take Tolkien without a fight and with a notable success, that might be it. Like I can't think of another property that has as much dedicated fan base, including normies, as the Tolkien community.
It quite literally feels like that final battle at the Lord of the Rings, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just like two complete sides fighting for virtue.
Yeah, it feels exactly like that, and that's both. It's both harrowing and gallivanting, but it also is somber because you have that lingering fear of, okay, but if this ends up being a success, because no matter what Amazon's going to claim it is, but if it does have an element to it that is a genuine success, we're screwed. Like, what other front are we going to be able to fight this on? Name one other fan base and nerd community and nerd product that has the same fervor and love for it and staying power as Middle Earth, as Tolkien. 70 years worth of novels, 20 years worth of the Jackson films, Ralph Bakshi's films even, some people quite enjoy. Those are 60s, weren't they? Jeez. Like, multiple generations have grown up with this. Multiple generations grew up with Star Wars as well, but that didn't come out to the 70s. Lord of the Rings came out in the books, was it 50s? 54, I think, is when Fellowship came. Hobbit came out well before that. I can't think of a single thing that has this level of love and adoration directly stitched to it by fans. So if we don't push back and don't make our point here, it'll never be made.
Well, I suppose it's a bit of a reprieve in the whole the black pill issue of normies versus dedicated fans. And to be honest, it's actually really nice to see that. I wouldn't suggest we are winning, but we are having a lot more influence in the wider opinion.
Yeah.
Than previous franchises that a lot of us have tried to defend.
Yeah, and still defending. I'm still fighting back against people trying to turn 40k into a fucking soapbox for leftist propaganda. I still push back against that hard. But other than me, Arch does it from time to time, but he's these days anyway, more focused on general politics as well as media politics. So, but like for me, it's like specifically like 40k and with Tolkien, and it's heavy. It's heavy. There's a lot of weight to this.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, you know, like the Lord of the Rings is one of like the oldest main nerd culture series out there, if not the oldest.
Absolutely. Certainly.
So there's a huge amount of emotion. Like people, like, I mean, to be honest, I can understand Pyrrhus in his room, just, you know, dark cloak and all, you know, by candlelight opening the Lord of the Rings as if it was a big fucking spell tome, just reading over it. People dedicate their entire lives to the lore.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, if you think Luton '09 is batshit with 40k lore, you've seen nothing on the Lord of the Rings fans. Holy shit.
Oh yeah. It's insane, and that's why this is so important. We cannot let up the pressure on this. Jeez. Okay. So yeah, overall, I've given my thoughts on the show. Again, I'm gonna be making some videos on it. But kind of discussion-wise, this has been pretty much on point. Unfortunately, I gotta get out of here soon. I got work shortly. It is unfortunate that Nolan Hewart, who said I was blind for not liking the series, didn't have the ball sack or the spine to... Despite the fact that I directly, under his comment, left 3 links to the Discord, he didn't feel confident enough in his perspective to defend it live. But, and it's unfortunate that earlier, Biffer Dohabit also said he liked Rings of Power, but unfortunately, despite also being provided the lifeline, decided not to come on and give his perspective. So, hopefully at some point, I'll get lucky, and I'll be able to bring on somebody who actually likes Rings of Power and has a genuine explanation of why, outside of the jangling keys of it's pretty. But yeah. Got anything else you want to leave off on, Nathan?
The one thing I will say before I go is, if you like Lord of the Rings, if you like the Rings of Power, I'm not going to put those two next to each other because they don't fucking deserve it. If you like the Rings of Power, no pun intended, but more power to you. If you genuinely like the show, then I hope that you continue enjoying what you're watching.
If you enjoy it because of the show. If you enjoy it because other people don't like it, fuck you. I hate contrarians.
Yes.
So, but other than that, yeah, I'd agree. If you enjoy the show for genuine reasons, all the power to you. But if you come in my my live stream chat and call me blind for not agreeing with your dogmatic opinion, if you don't have the stones to come on and defend your perspective, shut up. And don't nut up or shut up. Don't be a pussy. So anyway, that is it for me. I will call it there. I hope everybody has a great evening and night. Fuck Rings of Power. I just episode 1 was soul crushing, and episode 2 was soul incinerating, because it's worse. Because again, there was the dwarf stuff was just, that was Tolkien, but the rest of it wasn't. They had it in their hands, and they let it blow away.
I can imagine the more in the series, if they show more of the dwarves and more of the shit you like, I reckon you're going to secretly start liking it. And you're going to fucking hate it.
I openly like the dwarf sections. I hate the rest of it.
That's what I mean. Like it will burn inside you like a passion. It's like, ooh, what we could have fucking had.
I'll tell you this. If you can get me to recognize something in the show as Tolkien with my... not only my armed knowledge with the leaks, but also my preconceived notions of the show. If you can get me to like any segment of it, that's impressive. And that's very hard to do with everything else that they've said around the show, everything that they've presented about it. But again, the core of the show is still a hollow husk. It's very bad. And again, having read the leaks, Halbrand being Sauron, the weird non-binary fake Sauron red herring we get through part of the show, how they characterize Numenor. There's a lot of stuff upcoming according to the leaks that I'm really gonna hate. But if someone wants to make a pirated like supercut of just the dwarf sections of the show after the first season is wrapped up, I'll pay you money. Just give me the dwarf super cut, please. Anyway, I do seriously gotta go. Thanks. It's unfortunate we didn't get more people on the call lines. Sorry we didn't interact with the text chat too much, but I did just want to make my vocal points. But Asmo, the tallest of the dwarves. Proud of it. Yeah. But have an amazing evening, everybody, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye bye.